Hi everyone, this is the last game in my personal 4NCL game, seeing as there isn't any more left apart from the one which I lost the score sheet for. Now what I was wondering is that I was thinking of doing a video on webcam after this where I talk about some funny experiences in the 4NCL. Please could you say what you think of this idea in the comments box, and if it gets a positive reaction then I shall do it. But I might do it anyway, because it might be good. Anyway, this game is David Maddams versus Tim Hilton, and it's also the Rookies versus 3Cs2. It is the round 3 game. David Maddams is 145 ECF or 1810 converted ELO. So a tough game is ahead, especially since I had to play black. And I will admit that I knew nothing about these double D-pawn openings like the London, Collie and Torre going into this game, as you can probably tell. D4, E6, Knight F3, Knight F6, Bishop F4, the London system. It's like the Collie, but White's developing the bishop outside the pawn chain to avoid locking it in, but it can be a bit of a tactical liability because a correctly timed Knight H5 will win the two bishops and thus give Black a good position. I'm going to play D5. So the problem with this move is that it weakens E5, but of course it is playable because it just transposes really into a D4, D5 opening. But I think if you play it the Knight F6 way, you should try and maybe keep the pawn on D6 to stop the knight coming to E5, and it makes it harder for White to find a good plan. But this is fine, of course. E3, C5, Knight BD2, Knight C6, C3, establishing the pawn triangle. So bishop will go to D3, and White will try and force for E4. Bishop E7, H3, Queen B6, Rook B1, castles, Bishop D3, C4. This isn't a very good move, this, because I'm taking all the tension off the centre, and now it's harder to open the game up, and now White's got a lot of space in the king side, so White can now devote more resources to a king side attack more easily, because D4 is not under any pressure. And now after Bishop C2, H6, another bad move, because I'm making weakening pawn moves in front of the king without being forced to. I even followed it with G5, but first of all White plays Knight E5. So as you've noticed that White's queen now can join into the attack, and the knight's in a very strong square. And to make matters worse, I blunder with G5. And look how open my king is. Bishop H2, Rook D8, Queen F3. White's got a very, very strong attack. Bishop D7. And now White practically misses a forced win here at move 14. This is how bad I've played the opening. I mean, nowadays I'd refute this line easily. Well, not refute it, but I'd get an equal position easily, but at this point, no chance. Castle kingside is very slow. My opponent should either have gone H4, ripping open the H file, but even stronger still is Knight takes C6, Bishop takes C6, Bishop E5, Knight D7, and now Bishop H7 check. So if the king takes, then queen takes F7 is going to mate, and if king F8, then Black's busted here with the killing threat of Bishop G6. These two bishops are just too strong, and Black's pieces are on the queen side, aiming for queenside counterplay, which never has time for, because once you play C4 like this, you're committed to attacking the queen side, because Black's pawns are all pointing towards the queen side and usually attacking the direction which the pawns are facing. Also, Black's queen's in the way of the B pawn, which makes this plan dubious. Anyway. Oops. Sorry about that. Done it again. Castles, which is a bit slow. Bishop E8. And now White opens it up with E4. Takes, knight takes, queen takes. Which is a bad move. White should play knight takes C4. Because now the queen's attacked, so I don't have any time to move the knight. And once the queen moves, the knight in E4 falls, and White's up a pawn with a crushing position. Queen takes F5, And now black's position is quite weak, and white's got an advantage here, but black's like survived the initial onslaught because white's not played actively enough, and we'll just skip through these moves until the end game because that's where the interesting point is. So you see e6 is very weak. This isn't a very good move. It almost gives black equality here. Rook EB1 is much stronger. Let's have a look. And white's still got a good advantage here. But after queen e5 it's almost equal. So that queen's come off. And now white's attacking pressure's gone and black has got good drawing chances here. Rook b1. Now bishop e8. So white's got this dangerous b6 pawn, but it's easily surrounded. And black's got a passed a pawn, which might potentially be useful. Now my opponent plays d5, trying to stir something up. So he's threatening to take on e6, and he's trying to undermine f5. And here I fall for it and take, which isn't too hot. Stronger is king f7, defending the pawn. It takes, and if g4, f takes g4 isn't very good because of bishop e4, but I can just go king d6, bishop takes f5, king c5 with some good counterplay, rook e1, bishop c6, check, king takes b6, and this position is quite drawish, I think, which is very good, which is heaven for black when you look at how bad the position at the start was. But I take, which is a stupid clumsy move, because after bishop takes, now I go king f7, but bishop b5 is better. Check, king f8, takes, rook c6, takes. If you have a look, that all the pawns are on the same wing, and a 3v2 on the same wing is usually a draw, although the defender has to play accurately. Back to the game. Instead I go king f7, allowing bishop c8, rook b8. I was wondering, can white just nab the pawn? Let's just check with an engine. I'll bang stockfish on. It's not. I included it in my notes for some reason for this game, but it seems to give white an advantage. I mean, it's just going to be a pawn up. Anyway, engine off. Instead, bishop b5, blocking the rook's access to the b file off. f3, preparing to bring the king in. King e7, king f2, king d8. Rook d1, passive move, king e3 is better, preparing to match the king in to b6. And now bishop c6. Now the pawn's being rounded up, and black has now equalised this position. This should be a draw. And maybe black can push for a win if white attempts too much. King e3, king c7, g3. Now, I've played pretty well since them initial errors, and I've reached the time control as well, because I struggled to get to time control in this game. King d6. Also possible is bishop takes b7, bishop takes, and you throw in a check, because if king d4, you can take on b7, because if king takes d5, you win the rook. So if king f2, then you take, rook takes, king c6, rook f5, and rook d8, and this offers chances for both sides, but the likely outcome is a draw. Back to the game. King d6, rook a1, and here I decided to give a pawn up here in order to reach a drawn position with takes. You see that after the pieces come off, white not only wins his pawn back, but he's also skewering the king to the h6 pawn. But black's got enough counterplay to draw this. Well, if he plays king c5 he has, but if he blunders with king e5 like I did, then white should win. Let's have a look. King c5, which is the stronger move, allows rook takes h6, rook b3 fighting back, king d2, check, king d1, rook g2, g4, d4, takes, rook g6. It looks like black's losing because g5's dropping, but the c4 pawn creates enough counterplay to hold the draw. With king d3, which is threatening mate, so check's forced, and after king e3, white can't stop the mate threats and do anything with his own pawn, so the position is therefore drawn. And a draw would be really good after the initial problems, but instead I played a weaker king e5, which looks more logical, centralising the king, so you can understand why I played it, but king c5 is practically a forced draw. So he takes. Rook b3, now this is the losing move. I could still have fought back with d4 check, takes, check, king d5, rook g6. This looks lost, but I can force the white king off the d4 pawn and then create some counterplay with the c pawn against white's three other pawns, because the c pawn's a lot more advanced. So check, c3 check, king c1, rook e1. This continuation. And this c3 pawn should provide enough counterplay to hold the draw and bounces white's three connected passed pawns. So that was my other big chance. Instead I blundered with rook b3, f4 check. Amusingly enough, if king f5, then g4's mate. G takes f4, takes. And now white's just going to win another pawn, and he's easily winning. So I'll just whiz through the last few moves so you can see how I was finished off instructively. You see now all these pawns are dropping. Yeah, I'm just 2 pawns behind. And I had to resign now because white's moved his king away. It's just going to race both pawns at me. I might be able to stop. I could stop one probably, but I can't stop both. White's king's active and everything, and the position's an easy win, so I decided to throw in the towel. And we'd already lost the match as well. But anyway, that was an interesting game. The end game's mainly the most interesting part, and the opening. I hope you took something from it. Please leave any comments and thoughts. Let us know what you think of it, and remember to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching, and see you on YouTube.